Hey, this is Fling with the FS Army, and we're looking back at week 15. What won the Millie Maker? The top 10 lineups. We had some DFS pros actually outside of the top 10. So we're going to look at their MME strategy, how they attack the slate. Some guys that have won the Millie Maker before. So there's definitely a lot to gain from it. And I do think kind of found something that we can use going forward. So a little preview of that. We will get into it. All right, so we have our Millie Maker winner here. And I gotta tell you, it was funny because so much of the content at DFS Army this week centered around this one game that the field was overlooking. And by the way, if you like these breakdowns, let me know. Hit that like button. But the field was all week was fading the Detroit and Buffalo game. And when I looked at it, I was like, there's no way this is going to happen. Like, ownership's going to update. And by the way, it's going to end up being chalk. Or once we get to Sunday, we're going to flip the cards over and everyone's going to have the same thought process that we need to attack this game. And the field didn't. And it was really surprising because it was the highest total on the slate. You have two teams with stars all over the field, specifically, an MVP front runner at this point, Josh Allen. Two teams that have averaged over 30 points per game. They both have good offensive lines. They don't have elite defenses. So it was just surprising that the field faded this game and it ended up being the nuts. Now, really, I think naked Josh Allen was probably the way to go. Or if you played enough Josh Allen that you hit the right combo, you know, you had to stack him even with James Cook or, the other running back. It was crazy. Probably Naked Allen was the way to go, but Jared Goff answered the bell as well. I think he had 5 touchdowns, almost like 500 yards, just crazy 44 points. So we had a Goff to Amon-Ra and Laporta double stack. Now, there were no bringbacks and surprised that we didn't see like a James Cook bring back, but had the double stack here, of course. Chase Brown was a chalk. Ramondre Stevenson, just a cheap running back that needed a little bit of salary relief for Goff, Chase Brown, Amon Ra, Devontae Adams. Some expensive playmakers there. And Devontae Adams smashed like early on. It was looking like Aaron Rodgers to Devontae Adams was going to be the nuts. I'm sure we'll see maybe a couple of those in the top 10 here. But Devontae Adams smashed. Brian Thomas smashed 8%. I'm surprised he wasn't higher owned. I know he was, the chalk and cash games. People were looking to get off that. And really had a secondary stack here of I guess Adams and Brian Thomas and Brent Strange. So two players from the same team. Now Brent Strange was like a minimum 2,500 price player. So the double tight end, we don't see it a whole lot, but it makes sense here, fitting the whole lineup in with a minimum priced tight end. Laporta, obviously, we had been waiting on a game like this from him, and it was good to see it. And then Denver D, pick 6 from Anthony Richardson. Multiple turnovers in that game in the second half from the Colts. So Denver D, 20 points. Once again, back to back, we've had 2 high scoring weeks. So it's good that we're finishing the season with some higher scoring games. We had so many low scoring games to start the season. So another 261 is probably going to bring the overall seasonal average up to, like I think it was a 224. So maybe even a little higher than that, push it closer to 230. And this was a contrarian lineup. So that was what was great about this. And again, the contrarian stack was, what kind of started the lineup. Really, it only ate chalk in one spot, maybe two. I mean, 14% is the highest owned. So really good. 84%. Love it. Now, this guy was 150 max, so we're going to get into his 150 process here in a second, see, what he did. But let's look at the second place lineup with M. Philly. So, like I said, Aaron Rodgers, that was kind of what was winning everything early on with 30 points at 5,400. And Gibbs, you wanted all the Detroit Lions that you could get, really. You wanted Gibbs, you wanted Amon-Ra, you wanted Laporta. You obviously you wanted Josh Allen, you wanted James Cook, Ty Johnson. You definitely wanted to get pieces from that game. Shakir got a touchdown, and I think it's an interesting way to build. Um, I'm curious this guy's MME strategy if it was heavy on Detroit players, Buffalo players, and just getting some cheaper stacks because that was one of the things that I had saw some of the pushback for playing this game was all the stacking pieces are expensive. So you can get creative like this. Play Aaron Rodgers stack that's not expensive because he's 5,400, and then pick pieces from that game. And that's what this lineup did, and it almost got there. And another double tight end. So it seemed to be a double tight end day for sure. James Conner smashed. This is really what you want from both of the running backs. And yeah, this was a secondary stack of Connor and Gibbs. And that's looking. And then we had another Aaron Rodgers to Devontae Adams with the Brian Thomas bring back. You're obviously going to see that because Devontae and Brian Thomas and Rodgers absolutely smashed. So you're going to get a combination of some of those players. This one was contrarian as well. So third place, same thing. Aaron Rodgers to Adams and Wilson with Brian Thomas and Brent Strange bring back another lineup with Amon-Ra in it as well. James Conner. So yeah, this was a really good lineup. QB plus 2 with 2 bringbacks. And a Baker lineup snuck in here. Baker had a good day, 29 points to Mike Evans. Yeah, Mike Evans smashed. I mean, God, most slates, Mike Evans is breaking the slate. That's just how crazy this slate was that he wasn't even in the top 2 highest scores. And no Stone Smart bring back, no bringbacks there. Interesting. Mac Jones. Okay. Mac Jones to Brian Thomas to Brandon Strange. And a Devontae Adams bring back on this one. Also, this was a James Conner to McBride to Arizona D. So secondary stack in there. And then we have a Chase Brown as a one-off. More Goff, Amon-Ra, Laporta. No Buffalo bringbacks. Another double tight end. It was a really big double tight end day. More Fryermuth, Mark Andrews. This whole top 10 is double tight ends. And yeah, I guess you know, they they scored enough points. And then we had some high-end performances from some pricey wide receivers. So if you think about it, it's really not that surprising because that's exactly what you're hoping for with a double tight end. You're hoping that these guys can get 20 points and then your studs that are jammed in here can go off. I mean, from top to bottom here, really, Chase Brown, James Conner, Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, Brian Thomas, like those are some heavy hitters, and that's what they did. They knocked it out of the park. And this was seventh place. So we'll take a look at eighth place here. More Goff, same thing. Goff double with Amon-Ra and Laporta. That was the nuts of the day. You needed Devontae Adams. You needed Brian Thomas. This one was really just crushed by Tyrone Tracy, but overall, good, very good lineup. Ninth place, Rogers, Adams with Thomas and Strange. Bring back another double tight end. This one with McBride. 10th place. So we got the Josh Allen lineup. Now, this is a naked Josh Allen, which is like I said, it was really a day. Like if you got creative, you could have had the nuts with the Josh Allen naked lineup. But really, I mean, he had the same score as Jared Goff. So honestly, Jared Goff was more optimal. It's what 2K less. Yeah, 2K less than Allen. So, anyways, this one now it wasn't Allen. Was it Forsaken here? 9, 10. So it wasn't Allen naked, but it had a Jameer Gibbs bring back. Okay. So no Amon Ra bring back. Double tight end was Stone Smart and Fryermuth. McMillan, Neighbors, Adams, Connor, Gibbs, and Allen. Pretty crazy. 49.8, 89% total ownership, 236 points. So yeah, that was 10th place. Now, Giant Squid scored in the top. Now he's won this year, and he's consistently placed high in it. Um, honestly, more than anyone I've seen this year. And there's been a lot. There's been sliders. C Sears, who I was looking at, he was really close to winning this thing early on in the season a couple times. But Giant Squid has been the most consistent. So I want to take a look at his MME strategy here in a second. In fact, he's I noticed something looking at his lineups, and I want to touch on that. But first, let's look at Sean Smith, the winner. Let's see his MMA strategy real quick. Um, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and CJ Stroud. So it's interesting. Only 2% Jared Goff. So sometimes it's better. You just get lucky with these. I gotta tell you, it's interesting because look at his lineup here: 261, won the Millie Maker, right? Next lineup, 224, 208. So, consistently some good 200 lineups, but it was also, a high scoring slate. So, it's not that it was crazy, like good consistency or like he was putting out crazy high lineups. I mean, I had my highest lineup was like 209, for example. And, on this slate, that's like top 300, right? This one's 224. This is just a one off lineup. 2% Jared Goff wins the Millie. So, in some ways, it is a lot of ticket, but you also have to have a lot of good calls to get you there. Now, Chase Brown was good. James Conner was good. You wanted to be over the field on these guys. Great. Barkley, not so much, but didn't have enough Barkley that it crushed him. Ramondre, as we saw, I think Ramondre was in the winning lineup, right? It's interesting. Yeah, 9 points. So just the proper pay down that he needed. Because it wasn't like Ramondre was had to have a guy. He just happened to be in the winning lineup. But the discounted salary, under 6K, that helps. Chuba bombed. So even having 45% Chuba was still able to win the Millie Maker. You know, one lineup. That's all it takes. I've said it before, and I'll just say it again. A one lineup, 45% Chuba and won the Millie Maker, and only 2% Goff. So, um, part of that is, I guess he was under on Brian Robinson. Was not a good. I expected Brian Robinson to smash, but he didn't. It was the Jaden Daniels and McLaurin day. Just basically under the field on Rico, under on Henry. That certainly helped because 21% of the field played an 8,300 player who bombed. Now, guessing his wide receivers, we're going to see a lot of goodness here, and we do. Brian Thomas, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Mike Evans, Nico Collins. So, right here, all these guys did well. None of them killed you. Now, you could say, yeah, it wasn't a tournament winning score from Chase, but he did well enough on a lot of lineups to at least min cash. Zay Flowers, I had this is like the tilting part of it. Is I had so much Zay Flowers. Well, I mean, not a ton, but enough. I was over the field on Zay Flowers, like 15 to 20%. And to watch Bateman get all the touchdowns and then to not have any Bateman, it just sucks. Judy smashed. Sutton did not have a great day, so it was good to be even there. Um, had enough. Devontae Adams at least was even, because you definitely didn't want to full fade that guy. A little bit of Shakir, faded Thielen, faded Cooper, so that certainly helped. I had out of too much Cooper. Um, it's very maddening to see him get 0 targets. Faded Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. So those were good fades for sure. So mixed bag. You wanted Amon Ra, you wanted some McLaurin. You obviously, was good to fade Cooper, Thielen, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. So, and that's the thing to take away is like you don't have to be perfect to win a large field GPP. You're not going to make every right call. You have to make enough good calls that playing 150, you play it long enough, you consistently make enough good calls that eventually the stars are going to line. You're going to have that one lineup to make its way to the top of the leaderboards, just like Sean Smith did here. And more good calls, as you can see with the tight ends, really nailed like Brent Strange and Stone Smart. But let's go ahead and take a look at Giant Squid before we wrap this up. We got a night game. We got to make some lineups for playing the two gamer. Excited for that. So Giant Squid, take a look at what he did. And like I said, the reason I'm looking at Giant Squid is consistently, as I have been, is because he's consistently been near the top. So I want to look at it enough slates in a row that we can, start to decipher what he does different than some of the field. So his top lineup now 235, next one was 227, and then 203, right? So kind of even the same with him. Cause so, several lineups, only 3 lineups over 200, but those spike lineups, right? 235. It's playoffs, best ball. We need the spike weeks. DFS, best ball. That's what wins. So a spike lineup here is, got 11th place with an Aaron Rodgers, double stack, Adams, Wilson, and then 2 bringbacks, Brenton Strange and Brian Thomas. So that's something that, we saw a lot of Brian Thomas and Brenton Strange. And I think optimizers probably pushed those, both of these guys in here because they projected well. You got a $2,500 tight end, filling in for Ingram, who's getting 10 targets a week almost. We saw the game that we needed from Malik Neighbors finally. James Conner and Chase Brown. So these are looking like one-offs. And then we had NDD 7. So Chase Brown and James Conner absolutely smashed. So let's look at, this is QB +2 with 2 bringbacks. We got a wide receiver in the flex, a lot of double tight end as we're seeing on the slate. Looks like Giant Squid had some as well. QB +2, QB +2 with Goff, Amon-Ra, and Laporta. Hurts +2. So far we're seeing all QB +2, but I know that that's not necessarily something that he forces just by looking at past lineups. So yeah, here's QB +3. These guys all just projected well enough to be at least QB +2. Even here, we're seeing Lamar with QB +2, Jaden QB +2, Josh Allen QB +1. So literally have a combination of QB1, QB2, QB3, a lot of double tight end. Let's take a look at his exposures. So Josh Allen, top exposed quarterback. And Giant Squid, one thing about him is he will play a lot of quarterbacks. So he played 18 quarterbacks on this slate. Josh Allen being the highest owned. Now, I'm curious actually. Let's scroll way down here and let's see if we can find some Josh Allen lineups that were naked. Wonder if that's something he did or they were stacked. So this one was Allen +2. Amari Cooper. I had too much Amari Cooper, and I spread it out though. I had some Shakir, some Keon Coleman, some Kincaid, but it just sucks to watch the game absolutely go nuclear and Amari Cooper not get anything. At least like 5 points, 10 points would have been great than a zero. Definitely would help a lot more lineups cash or get even more into the money. So Allen, these so far have all been stacked. I've seen some pros not always stack some quarterbacks, their quarterback with their pass catchers if they're like a Josh Allen. So I wanted to see. I think I want to say Utica is one that doesn't always force a stack. But yeah, these look to be all stacked. So don't want to spend a whole lot more time on that. He did only have 2% golf. So it's interesting. No one was really, at least a couple of the guys that we looked at, some of the others that I looked at, no one was super high on golf. Um, 12% Allen, enough. That's his highest exposure. And I'll say this, he doesn't really ever go like above 15% on a quarterback. Definitely does not go above 20% on a quarterback. Plays a lot of different quarterbacks. And, I think he looks to get different at wide receiver mainly. Um, he will play a smaller pool of running backs, relative to the other spots. Like only, 12 running backs were played here and he was under on Dowdle, under on Gibbs, a little under on Chase Brown, and a little, and basically even with the field on Chuba Hubbard. That's one thing I've noticed for the most part. Whenever there's a guy that's like 30% owned, Giant Squid will not like be over the field on that player. He will either be even with that player or he will be under, as he is here with Rico Dowdle. Now, slightly over on Henry, a little over on Brian Robinson, over on Connor, over on Kamara. Thought, hey, Kamara's low owned. Now's the time to play him. And that's another thing. These pros they don't hold grudges against players. So and that's something I like. You know, Player can burn you over and over, and they're like, okay, but yeah, the Phil's not playing him this week. Now I'm going to play him. It takes a lot of guts to do that. And at wide receiver, so he played a lot of wide receivers here, and none of them are over 24%. In fact, most are under 20%. And I think that is definitely something to take away. That is a takeaway that I have. And also, one thing I've noticed is with Giant Squid and a lot of these top DFS pros, I know we talk about this, but we don't always like drive the point home. Is they will have a couple fades and like a couple like strong stands. So they'll have a couple strong stands for players that they want to be significantly over the field on, and a couple like fades. Each and every slate, you will see this. So I think that's just a good way to think about how do I attack this slate? Who am I gonna fade? So we saw here decided to be under on some of these players here, right? Be under on a little bit on Chase Brown, be under on Rico Dowdle, Thielen, for example. Wasn't so much like really hard phase with the running backs, but at wide receiver, I'm fading Tyreek Hill. I'm fading Adam Thielen. So, just deciding that you need to fade certain players. It's harder for the stars to align if you're not like taking some hard stands on players. For and against. Malik Neighbors, 24% here, so 5x the field. And that's the thing. You don't need 70%, 60, 70% ownership on a player to have significant leverage. This is 5x the field. That's a lot. Same with Brian Thomas, 3x the field there. AJ Brown, I love that because I had a similar thought process, and I did play some AJ Brown in DFS. It's like squeaky will. You know what? Everyone is putting out this narrative that AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts they don't like each other anymore. I bet that they're going to try to squash that and they're going to develop a game plan around AJ Brown. And that's exactly what they did. So they played him here. He was 8x the field, 16%. So sometimes it's just knowing what levers to pull. He's 8x the field here. If these guys are guys that you really like, you don't need to have crazy exposure to them if the field is not going to have a lot of exposure to them. And yeah, a lot of wide receivers. And, a lot of these guys did pretty well or decently. McConkey, Judy, Wilson, Higgins. And I think, you know, one thing I'll say with Giant Squid, his exposures, when you play this many different wide receivers and you have significant leverage in the spots that you really want, and you have your fades that you want, like with Adam Thielen, you're going to have more of a combination of hitting the right players um, in certain lineups, 1 to 2 lineups out of 150 that like really have a shot to take down the tournament, as this one did here. So he had 36% strange. So significant leverage on Malik Neighbors, significant leverage on Brian Thomas. And then, it was kind of just even here with Connor and Brown, just even with the field. Um, what did he do with Devontae Adams? How much Adams did he have? So even with the field on Devontae Adams. So I think playing a combination of, so many wide receivers and taking some hard stands in a couple spots and being right, you're going to cycle through enough players that, you're going to potentially hit the nuts. So I think that is going to wrap it up for this week. If you like this kind of content, let me know. Hit that like button. Let me know how the slate went for you. Did you fade Josh Allen? Did you fade Goff? Did you fade that game environment? Did you play it? How'd the slate go? Let me know in the comments. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. A lot more content coming your way. It's going to wrap it up for this week. We got a few more of these weekend reviews, so we'll be right back next Monday to do another one. Take care. Sheesh.